Welcome back. Oops, got it upside down. Now we're reading 38. Brahmacharya pratishtayam virya labha. In sexual continence, on being firmly established, of vigor, energy gain. On being firmly established in sexual continence, vigor is gained. Virya, which is translated as vigor, does not mean merely physical vigor, which no doubt results from the conservation of sexual energy. Virya is connected with our whole constitution and refers to that vitality which makes all its parts vibrant, so that all weakness, laxity, and inadequacy disappear and are replaced by extraordinary resilience, strength, and energy. It appears as if there is an influx of tremendous vitality from the higher planes, imparting vigor and strength to every vehicle which it touches. It is worthwhile referring here to one interesting fact in connection with the conservation of sexual energy, which is involved in Brahmacharya. It is a well-known doctrine of yogic philosophy that there is a very intimate relation between sexual energy and the energy which is required for bringing about the mental, moral, and spiritual regeneration aimed at in yogic discipline. In fact, the sexual energy may be considered to be only a gross form of this subtler energy, which is called ojas. As long as the sex life continues, much of this special kind of available energy in the body is used up in this manner. But after Brahmacharya has been well established, the possibility opens for the utilization of the conserved energy for the various changes which the sadhaka is trying to bring about in his body and mind. The current of energy, which has previously been kept directed to the sexual regions and was being exhausted in sexual indulgence, can now be utilized for the purposes mentioned above. But this sublimation and diversion of this energy is possible only for those who have obtained a complete mastery of their sexual instincts and not merely sustained from indulgence for some time. Such people who are able to conserve, transmute, and direct the energy consciously toward the cerebrum are called urdhva retas. Urdhva retas. Urdhva meaning upwards, and ratas meaning sexual energy. This complete control of sexual energy is acquired not merely by abstention from the sex act, but also by a very strict and rigid control of thoughts and desires, so that not the slightest thought or desire connected with sex or suggesting sex ever enters the mind of the sadhaka. For this current of energy referred to above is extremely susceptible to thought, and the slightest thoughts connected with sexual desires immediately stir up and direct the current to the sex organs. Brahmacharya, therefore, is not so much a matter of abstention from the sex act as a control of thoughts so complete that not the slightest stirring of our sex instincts is possible at any time. It is only under such conditions that the grosser energies of the body can be sublimated to serve the higher purposes of the soul. And the earlier in life we begin this self-discipline, the easier it is to acquire this control. Okay, 39. Aparigraha, steria, janma, katamta, sambodha. Aparigraha, steria, janma, katamta, sambodha. Aparigraha, steria, janma, katamta, sambodha. In non-possessiveness, on becoming steady or confirmed, of birth, of the how and wherefore knowledge. Non-possessiveness being confirmed, there arises knowledge of the how and wherefore of existence. When perfection in Aparigraha is attained, the yogi acquires the capacity to know the how and wherefore of birth and death. Though there is no ambiguity with regard to the literal meaning of this sutra, and Janma Katamta is taken to mean knowledge of our previous births, it is difficult to understand the underlying significance of this sutra. Why should knowledge of his previous births arise in the case of a yogi who has conquered the instinct of possessiveness? To understand this enigma, we have to recall the relation between the transitory personality, which is formed anew with every incarnation, and the permanent individuality, which is the root of every personality and which persists through the succession of incarnations. Now, the personality works in the lowest three worlds with a new set of bodies which are formed with each successive incarnation. Since these bodies persist one after another at the end of each incarnation and have not passed through the experience of previous lives, there are no impressions or samskaras in them relating to these experiences. And since memory depends upon the existence of impressions relating to an experience, naturally there's no memory of those experiences, and the whole of the long past, stretching through hundreds of lives, is a perfect blank to the personality. But as has been pointed out already, the individuality wears immortal bodies which have passed through all those experiences and carry with them their corresponding impressions. So the jivatma, or individuality, having a permanent record of experiences in the subtler vehicles, has a detailed memory of all the experiences. It should be easy to understand that if somehow these impressions can be contacted and the corresponding memories brought down to the lower vehicles of the present personality, knowledge of experiences gone through in previous lives should become available to the personality. This is what happens when Aparigraha is developed to a high degree of perfection. The essence of the personality is the I, consciousness, which in this turn is the result of the identification of consciousness with the things in our environment and with our lower vehicles, including the physical body. The development of non-possessiveness frees us to a very great extent from this habit of identifying ourselves with our bodies and the things with which we are surrounded, and thus loosens the bonds of the personality. So he's basically implying that so much of our personality is caught up in and identified with and formed by the things that we're attached to in our environment, right? The things that we take possession of, right? We identify with. The development of non-possessiveness frees us to a very great extent from the habit of identifying ourselves with our bodies and the things with which they are surrounded, and thus loosens the bonds of the personality. The natural result of this loosening is that the center of consciousness gradually shifts into the higher vehicles of the jivatma, and the knowledge present in those vehicles is reflected more and more into the lower vehicles. So, although the lower vehicles have not gone through the experiences of the previous lives, this gradual fusion of the personality and the individuality results in the filtering down of some of this knowledge into the lower vehicles, and thus enables the personality to share all this knowledge. That is how the practice of Aparigraha enables the yogi to have knowledge of previous births. The development of such an extraordinary power from the intensive practice of Aparigraha shows the importance of doing things with intensity. The secret of discovering the hidden and mysterious facts of life seem to lie in intensity of effort. We meet the phenomenon of life superficially, and so naturally we do not get from them anything more than ordinary experiences. But the moment we do anything with great intensity and try to penetrate into the deeper recesses of life, we come across the most extraordinary results and experiences. The extraordinary results achieved by science in the field of atomic research should have brought home to us this great truth, but we believe only in matter and consider the phenomenon connected with the mind and consciousness as something intangible and therefore unreal. The truth of the matter, however, is that the mysteries, which are hidden in the realm of matter, are as nothing compared to the mysteries which are related to mind and consciousness. This is what the science of yoga has proved. To the yogi who has obtained even a faint glimpse of these mysteries, the remarkable achievements of science in the realm of matter and force pale into insignificance and seem hardly worth bothering about. Okay. 40. So I'm going to end there for now, but let me read 40 for you. From physical purity arises disgust for one's own body and disinclination to come in physical contact with others. Oh, that one should actually be read with Brahmacharya. Anyway, we'll get to that one next. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time.